Welcome back to With the First Pick. In this edition of the Perfect Fix, we're going to fix the old Houston Texans. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's former Titans GM Carthon. And as always, before we get rolling here, Texans fans, let us know in the comments what you think this team's biggest need is heading into the offseason. There are a lot of reasons to be excited about the Texans for the last 3 years, for being honest. Obviously, they flamed out in the playoffs, but that's something we can certainly talk about as we get through here. All right, Rand, here's the good news. Under DeMeco Ryans, your guy, who you know quite well, and C.J. Stroud, the quarterback, the Texans have gone 10-7, 10-7, and 12-5. Playoffs all 3 times. The defense is among the best in the league. The biggest issue, in my mind, is getting Stroud back to his rookie form. So they moved on from Bobby Slowick after year 2, had a new coordinator this year. What is the path to get C.J. Stroud back to 2023?
I mean, you got to – I think it's as simple as getting more weapons on the perimeter for him and having guys that he trusts throwing the football to. And it will also help with Nick Caley coming back for another year, that they're growing together in the offense. We talked about it yesterday, Ryan, where you saw Sam Darnold talk about how long it took for him to get on the same page with Clay Kubiak in terms of understanding what Clay wants in certain situations. And this was an offense that Sam Darnold had played in before, that he was familiar with. And so for C.J. Stroud, we know C.J. Stroud didn't play his best down the stretch, and I think he obviously knows that. But having another offseason where he's in this offense, he'll have a better understanding. Nick Caley will have a better understanding of him. And then I think the other big thing is them getting healthy at the wide receiver position. Hopefully, prayerfully, we'll see where Tank Dell is if we're able to play, because he will be a great addition to have back in this offense. Just his ability to stretch the field and create that space, because I think that was a piece that was missing. As great as Nico Collins has been in this offense, they are missing that vertical guy that will really stretch the field and stretch those zones and to give C.J. Stroud more open space to throw the football.
Yeah, they drafted Jaden Higgins at Iowa State, and then, of course, his teammate Jalen Noel, different size players. They flashed at times, but didn't exactly pick up the slack that you're talking about there. Doesn't mean they can't. They just didn't do it in year 1 here. The Texans, by the way, are number 2.
Now, I will say this about Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins had some moments where he really stepped up and held down the team. And so he was really impressive, especially in those 50-50 contested areas where he was able to use his big body and use his length to create separation. So I'm excited about him. I think he'll be significantly better. I think we'll see a big jump out of him. And you mentioned Jalen Noel. I thought his biggest contribution came in the return game.
Yep.
Being able to help flip the field for him. Now, it was funny when I was writing all these names down. They have a Jaden and 3 Jalens that they drafted last year. So let's see if we're going to, with this year's draft class, what name we can get some consistency from. So I just thought that was kind of funny but weird at the same time.
That's a nightmare for my grandmother. She could barely get our names right when we had different names. You give them a bunch of J's, she's going to be pointing at people saying, all right, you do this and you do that. All right, the Texans have number 22, in available salary cap space. They have to clear just about $5.4 million. Rand can do that in his sleep. So let's list some of the names of guys that are going to be hitting the free agency, and we shall go from there. Christian Kirk, wide receiver. Jimmy Ward, Sheldon Rankins, Nico Autry, Nick Chubb, Trenton Brown, Derek Barnett. There are a lot of names there that guys who are pretty big contributors. So there's some things to sort out there. So Rand, once you clear the $5.4 million, which, I would imagine Nick Caserio and his crew could do in 15 minutes, what are you doing next?
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I thought the offensive line really settled in when Big Trent Brown was plugged in at the starting right tackle position. I thought he brought some continuity there. So it'll be interesting to see what his price tag would be in terms of getting him back. I think Danico will be 37, 38 years old, and he was responsible. He had a few block field goals, block extra points. That's kind of what Danico does, and he brings a lot to the group. I just don't know if signing him right away will be a big of a need. Feel the same way about Jimmy Ward. He's had some off the field issues. He's had a ton of injuries. Nick Chubb, we all saw, and if we're being honest, as great of a player as he was with the Cleveland Browns and how much you love him and how he goes about his business, he's just not the same.
Right.
And I think you can find a younger guy to fill the role of a Derek Barnett as well. Christian Kirk is an interesting one for me. To me, it will be based off of where you see Jalen Noel and his development going. Do you see him potentially being your slot guy to replace a Christian Kirk? But Christian Kirk had his moments where he led the Texans in receiving as well. So you talked about them being $5.4 million over the cap. Some names I want to talk about in that renegotiation cap casualty space. Offensive lineman Titus Howard. He has a $27.9 million cap number for next year and features $23.7 million in dead cap money. They're already sitting at let's call it $20.9 million in dead cap space. So don't know if they want to go down that road in terms of offloading a lot of these contracts. But Titus Howard also carries a $17.5 million salary for the year. So you can convert that. Dalton Schultz, $15.9 million cap number for next year, features $10.3 million in dead cap money. Now, here's the interesting one for me was Joe Mixon. He's carrying a $10 million cap number for next year that only has $2 million in dead cap space. That was I don't know if you want to call it a sore subject, but that was one of the more mysterious things that we never heard exactly the how and what the nature of the injury was for Joe Mixon. We were just told that he wasn't available, and we'll see if he was available. And he missed the entire season. And so I have, off of that, I do have running back as a need for the Houston Texans. And I think this is a world where you can clear a lot of this space with him. And then the final one for me is the defensive tackle Mario Edwards. He has a $5.4 million cap number for next year that features only $1 million in dead cap space. Now the trick is, as I was taking my notes, I made a note for myself to pull the list. If you pull up all of the free agents that the Houston Texans have, the guys who are on expiring contracts, it is a long laundry list of names, and it's a lot of names on there that were key contributors, whether it was offense, defense, or special teams.
Yeah, and that reminds me, as you were talking, I was double checking my list. A couple other names that are going to be free agents today you might want to consider. E.J. Speed, the linebacker, again, not a big name, but a huge contributor, so that might be someone they can bring back. You didn't call me out, so I'm sort of surprised. Tommy Townsend, one of the best putters in the league. His deal's up, and Ed Ingram, who had to play a good bit because of injuries along the interior offensive line. So those are also add to the long list of names we're talking about of things they got to sort out as they try to get this roster together. So the Texans have 9 picks, including 2 second-rounders, and they pick 28th. That's where they start, pick 28th, and they pick 38th, 59th, 69th. So they almost have 5 picks in the top 100. They have 5 in the top first 106 picks. So they have some stuff to work with here. So most bang for the buck at pick 28 or maybe even pick 38. We'll whatever feels like right in terms of the fit of these players. Offensive tackle Blake Miller out of Clemson, played on the right side, I believe. I have to double check. I think he's right tackle. Really, he got better, a lot better this year than he was in 2024. You talk about running back, Jadarian Price, Notre Dame. Maybe at pick 59 if we want to go there. In terms of safety help, because they have a lot of safeties that are up, not named what's his face from USC, whose name escapes me right now. Caleb Bullock. Yeah, thank you. AJ Halsey out of LSU, who we talked about early in the season after that Clemson game. He's a baller. So those are some names that I mentioned. You can go defensive line if you want here as well to add depth. But I'll ask you specifically, what about one of these day 2 picks on Jadarian Price, running back, who also has crazy return ability if you want to mix it up with him and Jalen Noel, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jadarian Price. I do like the running back out of Nebraska a little bit more.
Emmett Johnson,
just in terms of being a pure runner. Jadarian Price had crazy production as a kickoff returner. But I would be interested to see how his kickoff return style translates to the National Football League. Because if you go back and you look at specifically at his 3 big returns that he had for touchdowns, it was just got on the edge and broke a tackle, and then he was gone. So there was no creativity there. right? Which is going to matter because of the way the NFL's kickoff return game is structured. It's a lot different from college. It's set up really like a play, like a run play, right? So it's whether it's a gap scheme or outside zone type of scheme. That's why you see a lot more running backs back there returning kicks, because it's that style. In a perfect world, for me, I would love, and this is me being biased, and I can completely talk about my biases here on this one, but I would love to see Caleb Banks as a Houston Texans.
I bet you would.
and play in that defense, and that style of defense, I think would really, really fit him. I think D'Amico, I think Matt Burke, I think those are the type of guys that he needs. And their D-line coach, Rod White, I think those are the type of guys that Caleb Banks needs to bring the most out of him. So in a perfect world, I still believe he's a top 15 talent. Yeah. Again, I keep saying it. I'm not going to say it anymore about where he has to go this spring. But perfect world, if he's there at pick 28, they take him, and I think that they'll be cooking with grease. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's right. He could be there at 28. The problem for him, and this is a good problem, unlike Johnny Newton a few years ago, who didn't do anything pre-draft and fell to the second round, Caleb went to the Senior Bowl and balled out. So he's no longer a secret in terms of the health. But yeah, I would be hard pressed to find a place where he wouldn't be a great fit for somebody at 6'6", 330, 35-inch arms and just dominate when he's locked in. But
and then I give you another one, Ryan. I give you another one. This would be a good place for our guy Pat Coogan.
Oh, center out of Indiana. There we go. Yeah. Love it.
Because I could see a world where they're looking on both sides of the line with some of those early picks. You mentioned that, how many picks they have in the top, they call it 106. And so I could see with 2 2s or possibly the 3 where they are, I could see a world where, they get the defensive tackle, then you kick in, get you a center and a guard, with one of those early picks.
Yeah, because part of the issue, I don't want to put blame where it's not necessarily due, but part of the issue is that CJ's taken some hits over the course of his career. So just keep bolstering the offensive line. They have been trying to do that, but, keep doing it until you get it right for sure. All right, Texans fans, let us know what you think here in terms of our suggestions or what you think the player they should target on day 1 or day 2. I'll leave it up to you. You can go into round 7 if you want. I'll read the comments either way. So let us know. All right, before we get out of here, I have to have a word from Mr. Mora.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
All right, like I said, this team has gone to the playoffs all 3 years. D'Amico, they've had double-digit wins all 3 years. C.J. Stroud has regressed all 3 years, sort of. But I feel like they get the O-line right. The defense can carry you. Like, you don't have to score 30 points a game. You can score 14 points a game and win. So we've talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're probably the best team in the division as we sit here. And then it's a question of math. Can you get in as a wild card team if you're not going to win the division as the Houston Texans? I think they're going to win double-digit games because that's what they do. Are they a playoff team, though, Rand?
I think so. And, to me, you don't have to look any further than the Seattle Seahawks, the reigning Super Bowl champions. They're kind of built similarly. The defense is what carries them. And so I think once CJ settles back in and then they get this offense in a more consistent space, I think we could see the same type of run that we saw the Seattle Seahawks make, because I do think that CJ Stroud is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold, if you want to be honest about it. But I think Sam Darnold had more consistent weapons around him.
All right, let me ask you a question real quick. Let's see. Super Bowl's tomorrow, and the Texans are in it or the Seahawks are in it. Who's your starting quarterback?
I'm not sure. Say that again, the question.
All right, let's just say it this way. Who's your starting quarterback if the Super Bowl's tomorrow, CJ or Sam?
I mean, based off of how the playoffs went, I got to ride with Sam.
Okay, I just wanted to get you on record.
You know what I mean? Because
folks in the comments going to be talking.
Sam got right at the right time. Let's just say it that way. And CJ went the other way, because we can't dismiss the fact that Sam Darnold led the National Football League in turnovers. 14 interceptions, 6 fumbles. on the season. But then I'm sure by and large, C.J. Stroud led the playoffs in turnovers, right? So Sam got hot at the right time. C.J. did not.
I think the other bottom line that you were making is that let your defense do the work and just take care of the football, and you can go a long way. And that's what CJ obviously has to work on. Sam worked on in the playoffs. They didn't have a single turnover, I don't think. So I take your point. So you think they're a playoff team? I think they're a double-digit win team. Texans fans will certainly let us know in the comments how they feel about it. But that is it for this edition of The Perfect Fix. Thanks, as always, for joining us in the old discussion there. Be sure to subscribe if you like what we do here on the pod, and we will see you guys in the next one.